Yesterday morning at approximately 3:20 hours, officers responded to a call of a shooting at an after-hours warehouse party at approximately the 800 block of East 11th Street. When the officers arrived on the scene, they encountered well over 100 people that were in the parking lot of this location, and included 3 people that had been critically shot and were laying in the parking lot. Aside from that, there were 2 other victims who had showed up at St. Francis Hospital that had been transported by private vehicle with non-life-threatening wounds at that point. Throughout the morning, 3 of the individuals that had been shot went into surgery, the critical injured ones, and at approximately 4:55 hours yesterday morning, one of those individuals passed away from his injuries. This individual was identified as James Gary, G-A-R-Y. He was a 27-year-old male. Including the other victims were a 26-year-old male who went to St. Francis as well, underwent surgery for several hours, and is still in critical condition at St. Francis. A 33-year-old male who went to Wesley, and also he's in stabilized condition, but he also went through several hours of surgery. And then the non-life-threatening injuries were a 30-year-old female and a 27-year-old female. At this point, after several hours of investigations on this case throughout yesterday, we were able to identify a suspect, and we continue to look for that individual at this point.
Are we naming him at this point?
I'm sorry?
Just one suspect?
At this point, yes, ma'am.
And are we naming that suspect?
We are not.
You're in charge of the gang unit. Is this a rival gang situation?
Well, the way Bob belonged to the Person Crime Bureau, and the lieutenants that are assigned to that bureau split homicide call-outs. It just so happens that this murder is gang-related shooting.
It is gang-related?
It is, yes.
Can you talk about this business, where this party was going on, maybe some history, what we thought maybe was happening there?
Well, it appears as if the gentleman that is leasing this space has had it for probably less than 2 months. It runs a legitimate business throughout the day, but in the evenings, on the weekend, he runs basically a place for people to congregate after hours after the clubs are closed.
What kind of business is it?
It appears to be some sort of automotive shop.
Is that business still open now, in light of what has happened?
Well, when we release custody of it, it will, as far as I know, the owner will reopen it.
And is that owner at all involved, or does he face any type of something for having this?
The investigation in regards to that matter continues.
Is that legal to rent out a warehouse for parties with alcohol and so forth? Or?
Well, it depends on whether or not you're selling alcohol. And again, that part of the investigation continues to determine whether that actually occurred.
Can you tell us whether this was a dispute between rival gang members?
It was.
So the suspect, was he at the party or he showed up and then?
It appears as if our victim and several individuals associated with him are already at this location, and rival gang members arrived afterwards, and altercation developed in the parking lot of this business or this location. And at some point during this altercation, somebody pulled out a weapon and began firing into the crowd.
Do you know what the altercation was about or what started it?
Yeah, I do.
Can you tell us?
I can't. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Was there an exchange of gunfire, or was it just one person firing?
There were multiple shooters.
Any idea how many shots were fired in total?
Yes. No, I'm sorry, I can't comment.
Okay.
Can we know is there an idea of how many weapons were involved?
No, I can't. I'm sorry, I can't comment on that.
Any idea of how many people were outside in the parking lot when this happened? You said there were about more than 100 people there, but how many people were outside in the parking lot?
The majority of the people were outside in the parking lot.
There's several vehicles still left at the scene. Is that still there? Are you guys working to?
Several of the vehicles were actually in disrepair and belonged there in relationship to the business. When we arrived, or when the officers arrived and we were able to secure the scene, there were several vehicles that belonged to the partygoers as well. After those vehicles were processed, they were released back to the proper owners.
Is the deceased a gang member?
The deceased is a documented gang member.
Is the suspect?
I'm sorry?
Is the suspect as well?
He is.
Okay.
How many of the victims that were hit were involved in the shooting part of it? You know, maybe had weapons in the fire. Is it possible that the shooters were shooting at each other, or were they targeting others?
It is possible, but I'll tell you that not all, the majority of the victims that were shot in this incident were not related, or were not involved in this. You can imagine when you have that many people crowded into a small parking lot like that, that there's going to be a great deal of collateral damage, if you will.
Wrong place, wrong time kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
You mentioned multiple shooters, but at this point, we're just looking for one individual. Do we believe that that individual is responsible for all 5 victims?
You know, I can't specify that one.
But at this point-
I know that this individual that we're looking for it has been identified as having a weapon in his hand and firing into the crowd, and that's the individual we're going for right now. So.
Is he to be considered armed and dangerous right now? What severity level do you?
I don't consider him to be a threat to the general public. I'm sure at this point this individual's, like I said, I don't want to release his information, just the fact that I don't want him to go into hiding on us. So we'll continue to look for him. When it becomes apparent that we're not going to be able to locate him without the assistance of the general public, then at some point I'll visit with y'all again and we'll release his information.
You have an age for him? Can you give that?
I might keep it out.
One more question?
Sure.
I know we have a 27-year-old male who died, a 33-year-old male who went through surgery. I missed the other critical injury.
I'm sorry, I'm only going to do that once. Okay, you ready?
Yes.
Okay. The deceased individual was a 27-year-old male. There was an individual that went to St. Francis, that underwent surgery. He was 26.
Also a male, I'm sorry.
Yes, also a male. A 33-year-old male went to Wesley, underwent surgery. And then the 2 non-life-threatening were a 30-year-old female and a 27-year-old female.
And are 2 still in the hospital expected to be okay at this point? Are they still?
I can tell you that the one individual is still very critical.
And the 33 or the 26?
It would be the 26-year-old.
Thank you.
And were those
And the
people
two
hit?
female, were they taken to Wesley or St. Francis?
The 26-year-old male is at St. Francis,
Right.
and the 33-year-old male is at Wesley.
And the 2 females, did they go to Wesley or St. Francis?
St. Francis.
And they were treated and released?
Yes, they were.
They went privately, right?
Yes, they did.
And were some of these individuals hit more than once? Can you tell us that?
Yes.
Okay.
And what's the name of the victim again?
James Gary, Gary.
Is he a Wichita resident? Or?
Yes.